Hey, Doooovid here. We are live post Luke Ford show. Hopefully, Babylon Hebrew will be joining me any minute. And been talking with Luke the last few weeks. I haven't done a stream in quite a while now. If I look at my channel, it's been like a month. I have some Ask the Rabbi, different things I've been researching on chess and various topics. Let me just see when my camera's working or not working. Apologize about that. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, yeah, so here's Babylon Hebrew. Back after a long time. Glad to hear he's doing well. Hopefully he's going to share some interesting experiences about what he's been up to from maybe actually putting into practice some of the things we talked about on streams about business practices. Not sure if he was trying to say something.
Oh yes. Oh no. Most certainly. Hold on. I'm being summoned, but I'll just be one.
Okay, yeah. So excellent to have Babylon Hebrew here, and if anyone else in the chat or some old friends pop up, that'll be great. But this is an impromptu stream. I didn't tell anybody, so hopefully a few people will show up or have an interesting conversation. I've been on Luke Ford now like 20 times now. The last few weeks, almost every day, and we've talked about a lot of interesting things. It's revived my interest in Judaic studies and given me a wider perspective. And we started talking. Luke Ford wanted to talk this Jewish scholar, Mark Shapiro, at University of Scranton, and he's wrote a book on Maimonides, the limits of Orthodox theology, and that led us to debate. Mark Shapiro, is he what's his theology? Is he himself a heretic? And what is a heretic in the different denominational schools, open Orthodoxy versus Haredism. And then we tried to mirror that conversation off of like a current internet drama between the big Sephardi internet preachers like Rabbi Mizrahi, Rabbi Ruvain, and a few of the chief rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and a few other rabbis that were denouncing them for their supposed over the top comments. Were you following that, Babs? Okay, well, see if he's not ready to comment, but I'll go through the whole kind of direction that me and Luke Ford's conversations took. But starting from that, so we're framing this dispute in Maimonides about the different ways you interpret Jewish theology, and that's kind of best seen by sectarianism in different schools within Judaism. And if you're familiar with urban Jewish culture, especially there in New York, where you have hundreds of different sects of just Hasidic Jews and Spartam and Reform and basically all the denominations, or in Israel or even any major metro area, that the sectarianism could largely be understood by fundamental philosophical differences, and to some extent Maimonides' 13 principles, the deviations in either towing the hardline opinion of Maimonides' 13 principles or where people deviate could somewhat be definitive of the current different schools of sectarianism within Judaism. So then within that, I also took an angle. I came up with a few kind of, phrases I was using again and again, like hypocrisy is not a high crime in Judaism, so to say, the way, do Jews have an instrumental way of looking at truth, and to say truth isn't like an absolute thing, like you can never do this, but there's an overwhelming so to say, what's best for the Jews, and that could carry more weight than a given rule in certain situations, and so to say truth could be bent, but that's kind of the Torah Jewish way of understanding truth. So we argued that in various factions, and then I started telling stories like, because we're studying Maimonides, about the Rabbi Bertrand in that I had in Or Samek, who taught a class on Maimonides, and his cousins who are businessmen in Brooklyn. Bernard Bertrand and Charlie Bertrand, God forbid, a blessed memory, passed away of COVID-19. But like the approaches in the Rambam, and I was saying like the Haredi approach of largely rejecting the benefits of the West, and saying that might be more conducive to certain businesses, like being a landlord, brokers, or various fields, like the weight that's put on secular knowledge and the benefits and costs of each various way of life. So it's pretty interesting. And so Babs is back as we're Babs. Like Doooovid COVID-19. I got my eBay business. I'm organizing a CD collection, but generally I've had the leisure to spend hours and hours every day reading books, like I like to do most, as opposed to Babs. I think like we switched places, and now he just he's went to work and decided to enter the business world, and under the tutelage and mentorship of the path of greats like Jared Kushner.
Indeed, yeah. No, it's strange how quickly things change. You were saying earlier, my signal petered out, but I was curious. I wasn't familiar with the kerfluffle between what was it, Mizrahi and Sachs, and you listed a few other names. I'm familiar with who these figures are, but what exactly was the discussion about, if you didn't already cover it?
Well, me and Luke have had quite a few themes, and one of them is the role of evolution. What's the difference? Saying whether you have. We actually went through a whole book on the Jewish response to evolution, the Orthodox response to evolution, and there's various schools of rejectionists. Of just say we go with the Torah and the biblical account and largely completely reject evolution. To like neo-Kabbalists, synthesis theories that say like, yes, evolution and the Torah are both true, and they correspond and cooperate with each other, but within the sectarianism of a belief system. So actually, Rabbi Mizrahi, the Rabbi Ruvain, was attacking Rabbi Sachs because of what I would call apologetics, although Luke, doesn't like the way I use the term apologetics, but he was kind of saying like, yes, we believe in evolution, and what seemed to be saying like you could read the Bible homiletically, like it was just symbols and stories or something like that, and saying like that's heretical, that crosses the line, and we don't have to talk about like the theological implications of like heresy or who's right, and like Doooovid likes the topic, and it was fun streaming with Luke, like actually reading that book. I have it on my desktop still, about all these collected articles about the Orthodox Jewish response to the belief in evolution. And then Rabbi Ruvain, who has a very big following on YouTube, like he's a popular internet preacher, verse, so to say, Rabbi Sachs, the former chief rabbi of London, and putting that in terms of Black Lives Matter, like Spartan versus Ashkenazim in Israel and territory. And I predicted that generally Rabbi Mizrahi and Rabbi Ruvain would probably come out on top, given the current dynamics. And also in Israel, it's like, who's more valuable at the current time? How valuable to Israel is their connection to Britain? I mean, Babs lived in the UK for a while, has family there, but I would say now, on a general, what's best for the Jews, that the relationship with the UK is more expendable than so to say in the past, because Israel has probably more important allies, that Israel could probably do okay even if it had severed relations with the UK. Even Ricardo with the super chat. Wow, $4.99. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Ricardo. It's always good to see that name in the comment section. So yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look back at some of the discussions that you had with Luke Ford before I really weigh in on that. But yeah, no, it sounds like a continuation of a time immemorial since held debate. Anyway, yeah, business. So let's start things out with how have you been making the most of the pandemic? What have you spent your time doing? And while aside from your social and scholarly endeavors, what's the business been like?
Um, I mean, the pandemic, I mean, thank God, like I've been able to adapt pretty easy because my business, I just manage a few properties and I have an eBay business. So you're just taking basic social distancing, wearing a mask requirements the few times around people, and then abstaining from what I used to do, but almost all of that was voluntary. So like yeah, I used to enjoy going to Minion and to events and to chanting and playing chess and all these things, but they were voluntary actions, and I've been able to abstain. Wow, $24.99, Ricardo. I would.
This is a business stream.
Well, it's
Even the
saying
stream itself.
no, I mean, making money was one of the original intentions of streaming, and you're saying like it is good to do things in a way that also make money. Although there are karmatic trade-offs, it's not like you could just completely gear yourself to making money, and there's not going to be any negative karma associated with that. But yeah, I mean, usually, yeah, we've been doing this for a while. Like, thank God, Doooovid is monetized. Doooovid will get like 60% of that money in like 3 months from now.
Hell yeah. So
If I don't get like my channel, God forbid, problems with YouTube between now and then, which God forbid, like then like retroactively within the next 3 months, like so. Doooovid
just
is
seize your
usually pretty
assets,
careful.
freeze them. They do
Although I
that.
would put the link in the chat. Like StreamYards is pretty amenable. Like I could put the link in the chat, and then people can't bomb it because there's a backstage, and I have to let them in. So someone could still technically try to do something dumb to try to get me, and I'd have to take the stream down. But like, yeah, I probably would risk still putting the link in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a shot. It's up to you. It's your call. I wouldn't mind having some company in here. But before we get to that, how have you? Are you making more now? First question: Are you making more now since coronavirus happened? And second question: What are some ways that you find to? How do you attract good fortune into your life?
Yeah, I am making substantially more than I have now that COVID-19, largely because um, I can't do anything else. So I'm just working more. Like usually I've been rather lazy. I don't really like working. And so I work generally as little as I have to for the money I need. For example, like now I got hundreds of dollars, maybe $1,000+ of CDs right behind me. And okay, I got to list them. I got to sell them. And it's, and I had to organize the CDs to get the CDs. But I knew I had this work for quite a bit of time. And, and I guess, I just wasn't really that ambitious about making money. And I'm still not really that ambitious about making money, but, just had like more time to do it. In fact, I might buy a MacBook. I was thinking of investing for better streaming equipment. I was thinking, wasn't exactly sure the right type of computer equipment I was going to go with, and was thinking if a MacBook could meet all of my streaming needs, that might be better than a home system. But thank God, like, yeah, I've made the money. I have that set aside. So once I figure that out, I had looked into teaming up actually with Indian partners from the yoga class into like a condominium building before COVID-19, and it's we didn't really get anywhere on it. We didn't find like an LLC or anything, but we were talking about it, it's unclear, like if we had done it, how it would have affected going into the lockdown. It's possible that the real estate would actually be worth more, but there could be a substantial risk. But I'm still looking possibly to jump in and invest in some real estate. It's interesting you mentioned Amazon fulfillment center, so if we could do a interesting conversation. But one of the most prominent Orthodox Jews in Metro Detroit, he's on my YouTube channel. A few things that I recorded. Gary Torgau might purchase this huge real estate called the Old State Fairgrounds, like 150 acres, and build a lease to Amazon for like a $400 million fulfillment distribution center. I have that on my YouTube, like from years ago, like disputes of what to do about this plot of land for like 150 years. They had every year a state fair, and then it died out in the land. Magic Johnson, from the Los Angeles basketball player, was going to invest and build a mega mall, which was probably a bad idea because mega malls aren't doing so well anyways. And there were protests against it. And that was when I was in the Tishman School of Construction Management, and obviously Babs knows Tishman. But Tishman is the sponsor of the University of Michigan Civil Engineering School of Construction Management. So I was going to those meetings about what's going to happen with the state fairgrounds. But now Detroit, desperate situation, money, hemorrhaging, lockdown, casinos aren't providing revenue. And one of the biggest things that they have is this huge plot of land, and Amazon distribution center probably makes sense. And interesting, prominent Orthodox Jew in the area may be the developer of the land. It has to be voted on by city council. And from Bab's perspective, this man who may get this plot of land is largely a Democratic activist. Even though he's an Orthodox Jew, he's a Democratic activist and a member of the NAACP. So so to say that that's going to be a vote in city council of whether whether this deal could go through or not.
That's funny that you mention Tishman, because he actually there was a Tishman facilities at one of the schools I attended in New York City, one of the schools I dropped out of, and so that's funny hearing that name. I guess those tentacles extend far and wide. But yeah, I mean, you were talking about real estate buying right now. I mean, all my friends, my business partners, we're waiting for the market to drop. We're waiting for some sort of insolvency crisis, because as it stands right now, the way a lot of us were thinking is, well, there's going to be a knock-on effect right after what happened with coronavirus. At some point, real estate prices were going to go down. But lo and behold, because of Trump pumping the market, real estate prices have gone up, at least for the short term. So we're all very confused and apprehensive. We're all kind of waiting, holding back. I mean, I don't know, but to those who had invested in real estate pre-coronavirus, you at least in the short term, you're doing quite well. Real estate prices have gone up, especially in the major metro areas.
I would assume that probably real estate's the best thing to be in a situation like this, although there's always going to be areas that could make more profit, like trading or owning the right stocks. But generally, I mean, there's two angles. One is the slowed migration, and if you thought that the reason why real estate prices were largely going up was because of increased immigration and largely upper income immigration that would be able to sustain in a regular increase in real estate prices, especially in urban areas, that the new global educated elite that comes to America and then settles in urban areas and makes up the new upper middle class because they're fulfilling professional jobs and engineers and all the various demographic change that we've been talking about on streams for a few years now. in all senses, like demographic, ethnically, nationally, educationally, class-wise, profession-wise, and all these changes. Robotics and the shrinking of the legal class and the accounting class. These type of the old Jewish professions of the huge law firms and accounting firms that statistically have fell in half as share of the GDP. I forget the exact numbers, but maybe even more. That the percent of like law that made up of the GDP is it's like 30% of what it used to be, and it's unlikely to ever go back up. So you'd still like, okay, it's good to be a lawyer, it's good to have a law degree or be an accountant. The engineers, like the ability of engineers to step out of the upper middle class to upper earning levels, and then the people is like no, I'm in real estate, I'm interested in real estate. Those say, okay, those are already in the game, and what they're looking at, what type of capital and capabilities they have to people that relatively are just trying to get into the game and may have no capital, may God forbid only have debt.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, New York City, I heard, well, Elliott Blatt in the comment section says, I'm seeing 4 rent signs in San Francisco for the first time in years. And what's funny is I think I, just earlier today, read a news headline, 130,000 spare units in Manhattan, I believe, or it may have been New York, but I think it was Manhattan, that are unoccupied, And that doesn't seem like that large of a figure, especially relative to New York's overall population. But perhaps this is a harbinger of things to come. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that there's? I wonder if you think in terms of do you think that perhaps? I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying New York City, is New York City, as I was saying earlier about America on Luke Ford's show, New York City has reached its high watermark. There are a lot of people I know who are longtime New Yorkers who are, a lot of them have moved out to the Hamptons and other places, or Connecticut. A lot of my friends are up in lovely rural big houses in Connecticut where they have giant properties, and they're like, I do not want to be in New York City when the one reason why I'm in New York City, things like, museums, gallery openings, the opera, restaurants, bars, they're all closed, and I can't hang out with my friends. So, I don't know. I think that at some point there will be, yes, real estate is always a great thing to own. It's made more millionaires than anything in history. But I do think that there's some sort of correction inbound, and perhaps I'm wrong. You can't really say, but my gut, I just feel it in my gut, simply because it's like, one every 10 years or something like that, It's, and, of course you can't look at the past to predict the future, but, I just feel it, don't you?
Yeah, if you're interested, let's talk about these larger trends, and like Doooovid, the proponent of the multiple truth hypothesis. I mean, so there's alternative scenarios, and obviously the different scenarios could produce winners and losers in different ways. And one scenario that would turn one person into a winner, an opposite scenario would have the same person a loser, but there could be greater forces and trends that are going to force it anyway. So if the older model of social structure and stratification is basically done, and you say, okay, COVID-19 could be a game changer. It could be nobody's going back to school. All these things are going to be shut down. All like these clubs and institutions and elite schools are really not going to be able to successfully reopen this year, even if it's 1 year. And so if the people are sitting on capital, maybe they've already diversified and they could move out and sustain. But the social structure of so to say, being the elites that generally held the higher positions, in society, government, economic structure, could erode. All those clubs just could never reopen, and there could be a new set of elites, and there could be new landlords. There could be a bunch of Haredi people will go in and buy up the Upper East Side and turn it into like Pacific Seaboard. And
Yes.
but I'm
I
saying
mean, that's the hope.
the businesses with the global, they may not need to return to Manhattan. So if like the any of the people who created larger businesses that were able to electrify and uh, diversify their center, may now be able to operate without the need of having a big building in an urban center. Saying like you could be on eBay, you could have any sort of merchant. So just because you've like maybe you've lost the power uh, of the structure that was based on a current stratification that is unlikely to ever exist again. So what new structure do they create in the city? So you say like, I'm out. God forbid you lose everything, your whole stake. So if a person who has wealth and they say, okay, I have a stake in New York, but I also have stakes other places. In worst case scenario, I lose everything I have in my stake in New York. Um, so if you're diversified enough, you say, okay, worst case scenario isn't even that bad, but obviously you don't want to lose your stake in New York. But there's a lot of different scenarios that could play out. Um, and probably none of them are that great. Although it's possible that like there could be a revival of New York City and, the state could be, but I would guess that it's unlikely that New York City is going to have a revival like, uh, looking at what I see the future going forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think New York City inevitably will have some sort of revival. New York City can, sometimes it'll be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, has a revival. Philadelphia used to be the major city of the East Coast, and then was supplanted by New York. I think New York will probably inevitably come back just simply because of, what it is. But, will it ever be the same as it was during the 1900s, late
We put two
1900s?
issues: is the era of the skyscraper over, and is the era of urban inequality over? That you're not going to be able to successfully have the same structure of urban inequality that function for a productive New York moving forward. And because obviously the majority of people in any major city are going to be poor, and you're going to have some force of like a police state and gentrification to have like a wealthier elite. And you say that you can't operate a police state or provide the security to have these elite institutions, like Columbia and NYU and various, like saying you can't, like put cops around and protect it enough, or that they just close up and there's no more Columbia, there's no more NYU or something
All
like
right.
that.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, right? I think that the Columbias and even the NYU's will persist, right? You were talking about the collapse of elite academic institutions. I think that actually the institutions that are going to get hit hardest are not necessarily, the Ivies or even really necessarily the potted Ivies, but I think schools that are those, kind of like third and fourth tier, and especially like the smaller, the really small, the further down the rung you go of name recognition, the worse it's going to be. I think that there's going to be a big, a lot of the smaller liberal arts schools are really gonna have a problem. I think that that's where most of the issue is going to be, rather than necessarily the Ivy League schools. And even maybe the schools that are like, maybe the NYU's will have a problem. But I'm not sure about the Ivies. I think the Ivies will persist. Let's see. You were talking about, oh yeah, elite. Do you think that the present elites or elite players, you think that they will lose their stake in New York City to some degree? I'm not sure about that. They may move out of New York City geographically themselves, and be less invested in New York City in one way or another. But unless you are a silt-handed idiot, if you are elite, if you are wealthy, you've made money during the past few months. And I also find that a lot of the more wealthy people I know, they don't invest in a risky manner. They invest very conservatively. A lot of them just hold bonds, or a lot of them hold things like muni bonds. The more sort of upper middle class type, or aspirational kind of capitalistic entrepreneurial type people, the ones who are actually usually smaller players, I find, but still quite wealthy nonetheless. Those, I think, are the ones who are more liable to be displaced, as well as, I hope, bailouts notwithstanding, some of the really big institutional players. I think that might be where there is a chance for, as you say, Hasidim buying up the Upper East Side, and I mean, again, that might be part of it as well. I think decrease in urbanization, right? So I feel like a lot of the, people who are, let's say you're an elderly woman who lives on the Upper East Side, right? You walk your little Bichon Frise or whatever around the block, and you go to Central Park, and you're some like lady who lunches, right? New York may actually not seem that appealing of a place to return to. You may even sell your property. So perhaps there is room for, as you say, Hasidim or other, smaller players, small yet organized and knowledgeable capitalists to fill that void. I'm not sure. I actually think that a lot of elite people, are becoming more entrenched. I think that if you have money, you have more money now. But I think that yes, a lot of those same people are, they may be creating a vacuum in places like New York City. They may be. I think there's generally a push away from urbanization, and I think that because of that, there may as well be less money of these, big retail players and smaller institutional players. Less money may be invested in cities, in urbanization. I think that perhaps the trend in general is just going to continue to be, people want to be, where do wealthy people want to be right now, or at least where do the status quo, wealthy people want to be right now. At least a lot of the people who are sort of the idle rich, I get the sense that they do not want to be in the cities. I get the sense that they are they're all in their country homes. They're moving out to, the people who are living in, they might have a place in Rittenhouse in Philadelphia, but they're moving out to, Flower Town or something like that. And it's funny also on the topic of Philadelphia. Hold on. I think that New York, what could happen is New York could undergo a Philadelphification, effectively. New York could go from being a city that's comprised of all elements, including elites and super elites and upper middle class people. New York may become more of a city of the middle class and lower middle class, akin to Philadelphia. It might become a city where, there are a lot of bike messengers and people who work in hospitality, bartenders. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I think that that's something that could happen, but I also could think that the void could be filled, and because of the eternal churn of New York City, there might just be a new elite minted. But then again, you also at the same time say that New York might be on the wane, and I might be inclined to agree with that too. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, generally, okay. I mean, most people, unless they're renunciate or humble in origins, would presume the more capital a person has, the better they're going to be able to weather things. Although obviously there's a certain karmatic attachment to capital, and capital beyond a certain point requires associated lawyers and accountants and barriers that weigh a person's free will to a certain ability, that a poor person in certain way has more free will than a wealthy person, because a person's wealth restricts their ability to do what they want, because they have to take their wealth into consideration. So I mean, just the level of a person, you have X amount of dollars or business connections, and you look at what's the wisest decision to do in the current situation, and unfortunately the current situation is mass uncertainty. So are you better off in the city or in the suburbs, in the country, or is New York bust or boom certain sectors, and just like the stock market, and but for business, when things are moving, there's a lot of profit to be made, because but there's also a lot of loss. And you're saying, okay, Manhattan, most of those stores have been closed for months. If they've reopened, it's to a minor part. There was, God forbid, the looting, violence, and stores boarded up, and some of those places, have that's just a fraction of their business, and they might have stability. But no, I mean, retail in general has been suffering due to internet and other factors. Um, Rent in general, to the majority of new building is tiered towards luxury, high income, and gentrification. There's not, besides for a few like government sponsored projects, there's usually not that much affordable housing that gets built unless it's part of an agreement from a developer in order to build higher income, that they have to build a certain amount of
And there's a colossal list for that. It just as in the Bay Area, you might be waiting for months, years in order to be able to actually qualify for one of these things. And that's if you can circumnavigate the whole bureaucratic process that they stuff you through in order to obtain affordable housing in places like New York.
Yeah, so there's all types of scenarios that could lead to all types of outcomes for people who own property. And generally, the majority of the assumptions would be, GDP's down, sales are down, but not necessarily rents are going to be down. So the question is, would there be any reason why, because of this, rents would go down? So there might be default, a certain rate of people that are defaulting on their rent, but amount of people that are actually increasing rent or prices, that for various reasons, that people are moving capital. And generally the best place to put capital is into real estate. So if there's a lot of people that are moving capital around, or they don't feel safe in the markets or various other things, the move into real estate is always natural, and that could cause prices to go up. If you have like a property that's commercial, retail, residential, generally very stable, good, profitable property is related to college dormitories. But like, COVID-19, what if there's no more in-person classes? So you say, okay, NYU, Columbia, there's a lot of affiliated even to, Touro College, Yeshiva University, let alone the big ones, and even Hunter College, Borough College, Cooper Union. If they don't go back to in-person classes, that's going to be a lot of empty property. But those aren't designed for low income. So if the so to say, the gentrification, the targeted people that were meant to live in the upper middle class, higher income property, it's very difficult to just let it sit empty. And how long can you let it sit empty? Can you reduce it to renting it at low income, below?
And then will you be able to raise it again once things return to normal, if they return to normal, or will you simply be locked in?
So there's huge amounts of uncertainty. You could be wise regarding the uncertainty, and diversify in location and even business. You say, okay, sometimes it might be difficult to, if you're sitting on capital, and because of inflation or uncertainty, you're better usually to have the capital invested. And if you could buy land, cash property where you're renting it out, that's usually the best of all investments of capital, is to have property that you're getting income and eventually moving towards ownership. And we've talked about that on Bab's channel many times, but that's President Trump. That's usually just the obvious fact of the best place to have capital is in property, where you're also making income on the property. But that's not always possible. And then you could also invest in businesses, even if it's a business where you're also investing in the property and renting the property to the business. But if that's not the case, and you're just investing in a business, or to say like Doooovid, low level, where I'm just a single merchant. I have CDs, and I'm just a merchant of merchandise, and you could be a huge merchant and I mean, there's plenty of millionaire merchants, but generally in the Talmud there's words. I don't know if you ever heard them, karka and metaltalin. Ever heard those? We got Babylonian Hebrew, so these are some good Aramaic here. If there's any Talmudic scholars in the chat, karka is Aramaic for land, and metaltalin is Aramaic for movable objects. So they say if you're in business, you're either in karka, which is real estate, or metaltalin, like a merchandise.
No, indeed. That's a good delineation. I'd like for you to expand upon that a little more, and you can tell us a bit about some of your readings, because I'm curious to hear what what some of the great sages say about merchant. Like, is there like what do they go into? Like, what are the rulings that are being discussed in regards to these things? But before you say that, as a response to something you first said, in that whole thought, you were talking about uncertainty and whatnot. I think that if you're old or older, I think that now, due to the uncertainty, I'd look for 80 to 90% safe investments, things like municipal bonds, things like just super safe things. So be cash heavy as well. Whereas if I think you're young, it has never been a better time to go full YOLO and expose yourself to extreme amounts of risk. You're still young, so if you blow up, no real skin off your back in the long run. And now is the time for people. Young people should be speculating and taking colossal risks. Do you not agree, Doooovid and Elliott? If you were young right now, would you be speculating?
Well, go ahead, Elliott. I mean, I think Elliott's in labor, and like I've also been in the labor market, and it's not bad to be in labor, and even if you're in management of labor, that's still somewhat labor. Management of labor is still more labor than to be a landowner or a merchant. But please, Elliott, welcome to Doooovid's channel. We got a Babscast back on Doooovid's channel, and now we have Coast to Coast. Are you muted, Elliott? If you're trying to talk.
Seems like he's still figuring his connection out. I think he's having connection issues. But yeah, no. Before as he gets things set up, Doooovid, I'm curious some of the rulings that you read about. You're talking about Kalka and Metaltalin.
Well, so I've been talking with Luke about denomination and Torah studies. So generally, I've been saying in Judaism, you're only as good as the rabbi you get behind. So even you could be a wealthy person, and you could have buildings at the Federation and the hospital and synagogues named after you. But generally, you're a Jew, you have to fall in behind the rabbi, and at the end of the day, you're only going to be as good as your rabbi. And in Judaism, we only venerate, so to say, rabbis, tzaddikim. We don't venerate businessmen. We'll honor a businessman. We'll make a dinner for him. If we're in need, we'll beg him for a little bit of money. We might give him a little bit more respect than we give the average guy. However, no, we follow rabbis. We don't follow businessmen, even though business plays a huge part in Jewish life. And even I was saying probably money is the single largest influence in Judaism, within Judaism, not just the power of Jews externally, but even internally of what influences Judaism. But when you learn Talmud and rabbinic studies, you don't learn it's not how to buy real estate. There's Baba Basra, the Talmud that deals with land deals, and it's talking about how it was in the Second Temple. And so a huge portion of extremely successful businessmen were yeshiva students that didn't intend to go into business and studied Talmud because they intended to be a rabbi. I believe quite a few of the Rothschilds included, but till today, the Reichmans, a lot of these people were just studying in yeshiva because they wanted to be a rabbi, and then eventually went into business. So they studied these Talmudic texts not as a method to be a good businessman, but as from Jewish understanding, and then it became valuable. And then also the perspective of the person who desires to be a good businessman, but desires to do it within the letter of the rabbinic law, so to say, that like I'm an honest businessman, and I've created and done my business within the ethics of Talmudic law, and versus maybe like secular Jews who you might have Jewish aspects to their business practices, but they're not going to ask their rabbi if the business practice is within the boundary of Jewish law or not. They're just going to have a Jewish flavor to their business practices.
Yeah, to the character of it implicitly, rather than being guided by the the actual guidelines. And I'm curious on that topic. Something I've been wondering lately. Various forms of speculation. I'm curious how these things are viewed in the rabbinical context. Is it halachically approved to speculate? What about gambling? Where does the line fall? What about
Well, my understanding,
let's say a leveraged buyout. Is a leveraged buyout moral?
well, I said according to Haredi standards, the best profession is being a landlord. You're saying the ideal profession, if you could go into one profession and you had your choice of professions, or within all of the professions, the most respected, noble of the professions is the landlord. And there's many reasons for that. Obviously, like okay, like Jewish doctors, so like okay, like we want our kids to be doctors and lawyers and accountants, but it's saying like no, I mean the general historically, our religion is geared towards the landlord profession, and the money lending itself is much more problematic than being a landlord, and usury and the issue of stock. So I was trying to explain this to Luke Ford. I'm not sure if he was understanding it or was beyond him, but the larger banking goes against Orthodox Jewish law and is ran by Reform Jews like Goldman Sachs. And I was mentioning Sidney Weinberg of blessed memory, the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, who convinces Ford to go public through Goldman Sachs in 1956. It was the biggest IPO maybe of the whole century. I think the Ford IPO of Sidney Weinberg, and it was also the change of the old, so to say, Anglo guard, through.
He really brought Goldman Sachs into the fore.
Yeah. So, but I was saying Goldman Sachs are Reformed Jews. Sidney Weinberg was the interesting story of the guy who started in the janitor's department and becomes CEO. But the banking is problematic according to pure halacha, and it's never been resolved. As opposed to being a landlord is really unproblematic and almost, as I said, the preferred profession. You could be in metaltalin, so to say, according to the Talmud. It's as a business practice, you're better off being in land in karka than metaltalin. So if you're going into business and you're saying, should I be a merchant of merchandise or should I go into land? You say, well, all things considered, you're better off going into land. And then the question like no, I like stocks, the joint stock ownership, or I own a certain amount of a company. And the various things, like most Jews have a system, but it is actually problematic, and so theoretically, you're safer, at least religiously, saying like, are you possibly problematic, like Sabbath observant, if you own a certain amount of stock in a company that's open on Sabbath, or usury and banking practices, that generally the real estate market is considered to be completely unproblematic. As we're banking, even though there's leniencies and basically everyone does it, it's still known to be extremely problematic. And it's saying generally it's Reformed Jews that dominate banking because they've reformed themselves and don't care that the practices are problematic with historical Jewish law.
What's interesting about the landlord thing is that due to diaspora, historically, a large portion of our ancestors were effectively, it was due to land ownership restrictions. It was, at least in Europe, but I think also in some portions of the Arab world as well. It was difficult for us to be landlords. I'm curious where this preference for the idea that is it preferred simply because it allows for a more of a passive stream of income, and thus allows you to spend your time more intelligently and morally, or is there something special about land ownership that makes it a more exalted profession?
I have to review my sources. I mean, obviously, anyone who knows Talmud, there's the biggest tractate in all of Talmud, Baba Basra. There's Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, Baba Basra, which is like the first, the middle, and the last gate. And the last gate, Baba Basra, is the biggest. It's like 180 pages and deals mostly with land law, and as where the Baba Kama, the first one, deals with damages. Baba Metzia deals with metaltalin, with the objects, and the last one deals with the property. But I think it's based on biblical verses that there is something to owning and tilling land, that's going back to the curse of Adam or whatever from the verses. And there's probably tens, hundreds of verses that talk about working with the land, and really that might be most seen in farming, but in terms of just the preference for working with land over objects, probably goes straight to verses. And it's also laid out in the Talmud that I think there's a straight up verse in the Talmud that just says land is more. I think we use the word chashuv. I think it's in Baba Basra. I think there's just a statement that says land is more chashuv than metaltalin. And I forget the discussion there. I mean, I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but I mean, we could probably find it and look up in the Talmud. And I didn't prepare. There's probably academic papers, but even like what's more real? And
exactly,
it's funny. I had my Indian professor.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. Also, especially back then, it took on. I'll let you go ahead in a moment, but it took on a more. Perhaps back then it also took on an even more real component, because, as you say, there was literal tilling of land involved, as opposed to just you're an investor and you hire a developer to put up a big steel and glass condo. But sorry, go ahead. You were talking. You had an Indian friend of yours?
No, a professor, Kamath, at the Tishman. He was the head of the Tishman School of Construction Management in University of Michigan. I took his class on financial engineering, a very good course, and he was mentioning in class, he was teaching us the basics of petty cash, liquid cash, and hard cash. I mean, is it capital or cash? And there's different definitions. Like your petty cash could be your actual physical cash, like if you have like a petty cash drawer, or the capital, or the maximum amount if you went to the ATM machine and could withdraw. Your liquid cash might be how much you could you withdraw from your banks or something, like if you closed your bank account, versus the hard capital, which is much more difficult. Like if you own real estate, or even if you have invested in bonds or long-term investments, where there's a penalty if you take the money out. So there's a accounting definitions. I mean, you're familiar with this?
Vaguely. Go on.
I mean, it's anyone who's taken like a university finance course, and I might be saying like petty cash, liquid.
Oh! I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I understand the different. Yeah, the different means by which you can calculate someone's value, or the different types of money, the different types of assets. And like
I was gonna say. I was gonna say I in the class, and the professor actually liked this. I would say a joke. But when the professor was explaining accounting, because when you do your accounting, you have these different capital, and they're taxed at different rates. Or if you're doing financial engineering, it's important your liquid capital versus your hard capital. So I joke to say, like, if you have to leave town immediately, what you could take with you, that's your petty cash. If you have to leave town in a few hours and you have time to stop at the bank first, that's your liquid capital. If you have like a few months to leave town and you have a chance to sell off your assets, that's like your hard capital. But from the certain level that, like, yes, if you had to leave town immediately, you would only be able to leave with your petty cash, probably not even your liquid capital. You might not even be able to go to the bank and max out your ATM card, let alone be able to close your account or transfer your account. And let alone if you had to leave town immediately, that you would ever be able to sell your property and recoup the capital, from the business and various things. So these strategies have to be, so to say, if you're leveraged in New York, it could take you years to unwind your businesses and get that capital out and move it someplace else.
Yeah, and that's interesting. All right, have you read anything by Talmud? I remember him years ago. I read something about skin in the game. I think that's interesting. It's also, the idea of land ownership being more moral. Well, to own land is to have skin in the game of, that geographic location. Having such a land is one of the harder things. Hell, you can liquidate. Shares of publicly traded equities. You can liquidate relatively easily, and then bonds. That much less easy. Shares of privately held things that much harder, and then probably the hardest is land. So in a sense, land is that real skin in the game investment, and people say skin in the game approach is more moral.
Possibly even closer to God too. That you're saying that you're a beacon of God's land, or some sort, that it's fulfilling like the essential noble function is the proprietor of land.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no. If Elliott or Judas have anything to say, you're free to go ahead. I see that both of you are here. Elliott, I know you're having some issues, but I don't want to hog the guest spot airtime. But yeah, no, Doooovid, you make a lot of very interesting points there. It's interesting. I guess the concept of there's the concept of, and I mean, this is something that Marx talks about, the idea of extractive or capitalism being, or capitalists or other means of production owners, landlord, etc. These relationships are inherently exploitative. It's a surplus value that's being exploited, and this is immoral. And the four occupations, the Confucian idea basically lists merchants at the bottom. It's very interesting that there are also parallel systems. Some of these Talmudic thinkers you're bringing up, say that landlord, that being a landlord is more moral. But although I wonder, is this more moral relative to labor, or simply more moral relative to, let's say, being a merchant?
Well, I mean, when we had Mansour, if you want to go into European history and say that the nobleman was the steward of the land, and even the steward of the people who lived on the land were the responsibility of the person responsible for the land. And if you like a modern comparison to say, if we become a welfare state, I'd done that stream, I don't know if you remember, on UBI, back to Andrew Yang and then Donald Trump, because the COVID-19 has already given out a $1,200 check. I wouldn't be surprised if he does another one of those before elections. It could be good for him, like in October, if everyone gets another like $1,200 check. It might be a good election strategy. I wouldn't be surprised if he does it, but like that historical way of understanding it, of the feudal European manorial system, that that was the definition of royalty or nobility, was land ownership, and that was the only way to own land, and it had to be given sanction through the church. Ultimately, in Europe at that point, the Catholic Church ultimately sanctioned the royalty, and the royalty sanctioned the nobility that owned the property, and that included the necessity of productivity and the systems that could have been like sharecropping or tax farming or the various methods that they used at the time that relatively recently developed into private land ownership. You have a contractor, some sort of private land ownership, or the corporation. Even to say like the corporation is a rather modern invention, and then obviously like the REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust, and various things that dominate today. But any of those people, like like what's more real? So you could own a part of stock, you could own part of REIT, but you could also own your house, or you could also own a building or rental property, and you could have various arms or LLCs or businesses. For the and probably people large in the business do have these various companies for these various reasons, but certainly Judaism is designed in a way that it's pro being a landlord. And saying we have a lot of books on it, like when I was in New York, and I used to drive around rabbis and work with certain rabbinic courts, and there's a lot of questions like about menstrual cycles, like important things you got to ask rabbis all the time about kosher. But the elite courts, so to say, that like the biggest questions are usually about real estate deals, and can you do them, and how to set and structure them in accordance with Jewish law. And that's so obviously the secular Jewish businesses that might have a lot of the similar practices as Haredi, but they might not care at all, or certainly so much that their business deals are structured in accordance with Jewish law. But for the Haredi large areas like New York, you have whole specialty rabbinic courts that specialize in expertise in this, and actually you might even do billions of dollars of court cases. They sing these special rabbinic councils. So you, Judas.
So, what up?
You're a bit quiet, Judas.
So,
Speak up.
So we couldn't
Thanks.
get Elliott. We're trying to get coast to coast. We got Babs on the East Coast, Doooovid in the Detroit, and our angry Persian Mischling on the West Coast. Elliott also on the West Coast, and it doesn't look like our West Coast friends have a good
West
internet.
Coast correspondents having some internet trouble.
I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay, you sound okay.
I'm in Los
So
Angeles.
have you became an entrepreneur? Has COVID-19 turned you into an entrepreneur that, now that things are closed down, you just hunker down and get involved in business and start making some money?
No, but my parents have been got me Postmates Unlimited, and I've been taking advantage of that.
You learning a lot of Torah?
Yeah, it sounds like quite the entrepreneur. Brilliant, scamming your parents. The entrepreneurial nature of the 13-year-old. Like I remember. Oh man, no, but yeah, no. I bet your parents have been doing something interesting. No doubt, they've been responding to this interestingly. You should talk to them about it. One thing that. And if you ever do want some money, you should try driving for Postmates or Uber Eats or walking around. There's more money in that than there ever has been before. You can get $20 to $30 an hour just doing Uber Eats on foot or with a bicycle.
That's not a kosher job. I'm not kosher job.
What
deliver
are
trafe to a
What are your thoughts on that,
dude? It's not a kosher
Doooovid?
job. Deliver trafe to a
Yeah,
No, I don't care what
unfortunately,
Duke has to say on that. He's wrong.
I could hardly hear him. I heard that. Wait, you came on my channel to cause me problems in my own channel?
An intruder.
So I'm just here to tell you. I just came over to tell you, like, I don't like you. I don't even know why I'm here. Oh, like, I like your guests, though. So, but I won't even give you the respect of being there. I just tell you, like, I'm here to speak to your guest, even though I don't like you.
Abraham Union. Doooovid,
Okay.
I think he's frozen. Oh wait, no, he isn't. But yeah, very nice background, very nice, tactically placed American flag.
Patriot, yeah, I'm good for you.
Thank
Indeed.
you. So
So you give up?
BLM is liable to the death penalty according to the Noahide law.
Oh really? Go on.
Yeah, no, God forbid, I don't want to talk anything
What is
controversial.
this? What is this
I might have to
controversial
bounce.
content?
I might have to bounce Judas. My channel has to be the proper etiquette. I can't risk any thing that's not politically incorrect. Anything that's not politically correct, I apologize. But no, I don't mind Judas. I don't mind talking Torah, but like it's got to be politically correct.
I'll be
Yeah,
politically
Judas.
correct.
We don't
I'm
want.
just
We don't
speaking
want.
my Torah. That's just my Torah view. It's just the Torah. That's what the Torah says. It's not what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. I'm saying like whatever. You like save it for your. You could give your sermon a different time, but don't give it now. Then.
Okay, I'll calm down. Baz, what are your thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts. I'm just an empty vessel. But my thoughts. Whew. Wow. In regards to the Noahide laws, I don't think I'm necessarily an authority on that. But in regards to what we were talking about earlier, about COVID-19 making entrepreneurs of us all. This is a non-Judaism related comment, but I think that in the future there are going to be archetypes. There are going to be archetypes. There is going to be the increasingly entrenched upper middle class, the cognitive and credential elite, who are going to be increasingly stratified and gated from the rest of us. I think that there are going, and I think that there are going to be, probably an increase in these university minted middle class and occasionally lower middle class kids who want to move to the big city, and they work as like low level white collar administrative positions or bartenders or couriers or something like that, and work in restaurants. And I think that also a third segment of society that I think is emerging is almost like pseudo entrepreneurs, or some of them will be real entrepreneurs, but sort of like I'm gonna or like here I'll list a bunch of traits, and you guys can see if you can talk about if you guys agree with there's a trend of these people that I think that's really going to come to solidify. You're going to see this as almost like a stereotype, like an archetype of people. Come a few years from now, and these people are being minted in as things in the present era. Basically, usually male, usually skeptical of university or academic education in general. Usually, quote unquote, undereducated themselves as well. Aiming, largely internet based, and desiring to pull themselves out, I think, for the most part, of the lower middle class and middle class, using passive income, entrepreneurship, much of which is either online, but some of which is in the field of real estate as well. The dumber ones are out chasing things like Amazon, FBA, and the more intelligent ones are investing in real estate. You see them around forums like biggerpockets.com, if you're familiar, Doooovid.
No, I'm not sure.
Biggerpockets.com. Yeah. I don't know. It's but you see these trends online, and I know the reason why I know that this is so much of a type is because I see the videos advertising to these people. Because if you search anything business related on YouTube, they think that you're some broke prole who's looking for some get rich quick scheme, and some slick talking mentor will attempt to sell you a course. But I don't know. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how there's basically going to be like these three factions, I think, emerging for the Gen Z social field. You're going to have these kind of wannabe entrepreneur types, some of which will actually succeed and become self-sufficient, self-sustaining entrepreneurs. You're going to have smug, kind of middle class, smug middle class kind of moralizers, often, overeducated types, and the entrepreneurs formerly being undereducated types. And then you're going to have, an increasingly entrenched upper middle class, which pipelines itself towards the new elite, basically. The people who started in some like incubator or whatever at age 16 and went to the good or relatively good schools and then got the good jobs from there. I don't know. I think that, man, I think that, I don't know. This is just an observation of mine, but these types, I see these like three archetypes starting to form more and more clearly, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the socioeconomic political sort of landscape of discourse in Generation Z will be. Yeah. Do you have any predictions of what's coming for the future generations? I mean, I think that at some point there may be a rebuke of technology. I think that we have become so immersed in it. I almost feel like, first of all, I feel like the influencer slash entertainer bubble will pop at some point, and I think that there will be a pulling away from technology, specifically social media, by some of the more intelligent people. People will almost be goy individuals. Just some random people will be.
I was going to push back on that and
almost
say,
imposing Shabbat upon themselves type situations. They'll be like, we need to take more time for our families and our loved ones and less time on social media dopamine farms. But perhaps I'm wrong. Go ahead, Doooovid. You're going to push back?
Yeah, it could be social media might go down and the various things like that may change, but I think there's going to be an increase of computer facilitated, machine facilitated human interaction, and basically all essential important interactions are probably going to move to becoming computer facilitated. Like I finally moved on to Starbucks, the app, so now I just order.
Yeah, the Starbucks card. And you get discounts for it too, let me guess, right? It's economically advantageous. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, but there's no reason technologically that won't happen soon with all my interactions. Like, still at the gas station, I still use my credit card. But like China seems to have the technology and implementing it. Like you could have a cell phone or a central, and that things like Uber, Amazon deliveries, and because interaction is being computer facilitated, intelligent people will benefit from the computer you're making efficient or best the interaction between the two people. So I mean, it's a real estate deal, tenant landlord, merchant, and any of the other businesses are all going to be affected at some level, and the interactions that used to be between just person and person will be between person to computer to person, and that will change the nature of how these things are done. It's already been changing the way things have been being done for decades, but with the COVID-19, with the lockdowns, with the moving to remote, with the some sort of catalyst to move to a cashless society.
Yeah, it's really sealed the deal.
Also, I said also, like, let's say, God forbid, this goes on for another year and we have to have legally enforced social distancing in these various things, and like crime and the increase. I mean, God forbid, crime and possibly like COVID-19, social distancing, contact tracing, it's going to be more efficient to let the computer do it. And people are going to rapidly see the power of the computer, so it's saying like, if they get some sort of reminder or fine, like if the computer could set up that if you don't social distance, you're going to get a fine, and it's instantaneous, just like tickets or something, and these various things that the rules, the computer has monitored it, and when we break it, so to say, we could get an instantaneous fine. And also crime, like in Detroit, there's a pushback right now on video recognition technology and various things, but
Mm.
yeah, the likelihood that within a certain period of time, basically everything is going to be recorded, video and audio, and just because the
And
technology,
geographically tracked as well,
yeah, just because the technology is good enough, and even like the crime implications, like all these Antifa, Black Lives Matters, alt-right, or whatever the various public gatherings that God forbid, degrade into violence. That now there's all these videotapes and recordings, and it may not change human behavior. Just because people get caught, and doesn't mean that people aren't still going to commit the crimes, because people still have passion and act irrationally, or act with short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. And just because it's being recorded, or they're going to be punished for it if it's a moment of passion, may not actually deter the action. But I think, like, moving forward, the role of technology in facilitating human interaction will probably be the largest factor. And also, like, artificial intelligence and machine learning from the business angle, that the intelligent business investor at this point probably is going to listen to the machine, because at the end of the day, the
Yeah.
algorithms or the machine analysis, the charts, is going to probably give a better prediction than the best mind. So the best mind, like chess, like I'm going to produce some streams on specifically chess, because that's what I do. But it's also applicable to financial machine learning, artificial intelligence programs, where there's cooperation between the human and the computer to produce good business decisions. And these days, basically all of the best business people, including Haredi people that don't really trust the internet, they still have they got to have their analytics, because you just can't do business without your analytics, because the computer makes better predictions than we do. We can't produce the analytics like a computer can.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you're familiar with the organization Palantir, that's really it's going to be IPOing soon. It's one of Peter Thiel's Peter Thiel angel invested in it, and it's an interesting organization. It's basically, as you were talking about earlier, it's the cross point between law enforcement and other similar decisions, and the ability to increasingly identify people and figure out where people are and what they're doing and who they are. And sorry, one moment, I'm on the phone right now. But yeah, I think that if you want to look at what a society looks like that's less fettered by the "oh, should we do this?" question, China is a great example, and I hear that China's been quite intelligent in its usage of human rights implications notwithstanding, its usage of surveillance and technology in general to be able to accomplish its goals, and more recently to be able to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that America is going to go more in that China direction, perhaps?
I put it out as a thought experiment already 15 years ago, just speculating that, what happened if all of the information was just made universally available to everybody. But obviously, that's not the way it's going to work. You have an economic system and various powers at B that build these systems, and then want the systems to either recoup their investment or to benefit them, not necessarily to just and then people don't necessarily want other people having their information. They might give their information to certain other people for a certain reason, but to just say, like, all information is available to all people. So in the terms of these networks, the key thing is data security, because it's actually easier to structure to just have all information available to all people. So the complication is that you can't just have all information available to all people. It has to be secured, and most information is only meant to be available to a small amount of people. and information is power, that a person who collects information has advantage from the information and isn't just going to want to share it, or if they are, at least want to gain the advantage. Like if it's investment or something, like, they have the latest information, so at least make the profit from the information before giving it out. So there's a clash between human, and it's really the same concept of the messianic idea of, like, civilization clashing and fumbling till eventually, like, utopia and Messiah. So you could take like a capitalistic conflict nature and just say there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be winners and losers. You could have a utopian messianic view that, like, no, like eventually evil, the Yates of horror, will be slayed, and all information will be openly available to everybody, and it's going to be okay because the Yates of horror has been slayed, or so it's pretty unclear. Doooovid's been proponent, really, that you really need the multiple truth hypothesis to even contemplate and try to understand these things. So you think of the different scenarios and possibilities in terms of the direction of technology. So just saying, what's the likelihood that everything, like, okay, like if you're a believer, like, we're Jews and we believe in the Jewish theology that there's a God, like it says in Ethics of the Father, there's an ear that hears everything, there's an eye that sees everything, there's a pen that records everything. That's Judeo-theological belief versus a computer that records this stuff. So say, why not? Because technology and the machine could, and coulds eventually become shoulds, have computers and microphones everywhere. So it's just that all information is it's just there and available. So there's no more uncertainty. And then, who has that information? So right now it's like, oh, it's the police department and Homeland Security. And even here in Michigan, some, like, transit, MDOT, Michigan Department of Transportation, or various public cameras, you could actually log onto the internet, like traffic cameras, and those are actually available to the public. But at the same time, like, no, most of them, they're specifically for the Department of Homeland Security and the police department. But you say, like, no, I should be able to log onto the internet and have access to any of those public cameras, versus saying that any person anywhere could, for whatever reason, have access to any information. So there's billions of people on the planet, and so it's like, well, random. I want to know what this person's doing and saying right now. And so for the computer perspective, saying that, yeah, that's feasible, that's doable. I don't see any reason why within the next few decades that shouldn't be doable. Because saying, well, that's not what humanity is going to want.
Yeah.
So like a multiple truth hypothesis of the various scenarios and the various things, factors that are contributing to the larger picture, like what's feasible, and what do people want, what are the conflicting forces, and what are the likely scenarios that are going to play out to balance these different conflicting forces.
Yeah. In the comment section, Bob Paxton says, when is Bill Gates going to join this stream? Pre-crime, and China's a great example. Babs, I'm so disappointed. Note that when I say China's a great example, I don't mean that prescriptively, like it's morally great. I just mean it's a great example of where things may potentially lead. Now, your idea is interesting. Simply, what if, right now, because right now basically all information, or nearly all information, is collected. But what if, it's collected but gated. So what if that information was turned loose and available to everyone? Yes? Yep. Hold on just one moment.
Okay, yeah, you were sounding you're a little low also. Yeah, so
but yeah, sorry about that. I guess as far as what else, let's see.
Well, I do week in review now because like I haven't. Besides that, Luke has been inviting me to stream. Like I'd been reduced to basically just week in review. Occasionally, I'll produce a stream on my channel, like Adam Green, like every few months or a different
Yeah.
thing. But week in review is more theoretical analysis, and me and Jennifer both have mathematical, scientific bents. So these kind of like larger forces, what is feasible, what are just a meta-analysis in general. So like not like what is Doooovid or Babs doing to make money now in the current situation, um, versus like what are your market forces, versus just a theoretical discussion about the potential impact of technology
Yeah.
on the future.
Yeah. 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 Hold on. I just wanted to read a few more comments. John Wolf said the government wants to track and tax every financial transaction, and that's interesting. That could be that. Yeah, I think that's part of the design. One of the added benefits of contactless for governments. The ability to sort of cut down on some of those gray and black market areas and those untaxed transactions. Let's see. Extolling the virtues of Uncle Ted. Yeah, no, I agree. And see, here's the thing, right? Like, I think what I said earlier about there being something of a pushback against technology, specifically social media. I think that this is not going to be the widespread societal trend. I think it really is probably going to be a minor trend, maybe amongst like upper middle class type people who are like already the type of people who are doing things like dopamine fasts, and they like Marie Kondo and whatnot. Let's see. Yeah, no, I guess. Oh yeah, one person says, "What if it will hurt everyone?" And this is just one comment I want to hear your thoughts on. What if that information could harm everyone on Earth? The information, making all that information common and public, and then we can move topic.
Well, it's like JF in his dystopian scenario of the revolutionary phenotype in terms of genetic engineering. But at a certain point, the best minds for our own success are going to go with the recommendation of the computer, because that's generally what's producing us the best result. So, saying, okay, like Babs, made an astute investment, but like I'm sure he used computer analytics to analyze the investments. And it's possible, let's say that had he not had the computer analytics, he might have made a different choice. And that choice he had made probably would have been worse than the choice he was able to make with the advantage of computer analytics. But because of that, kind of like I've been saying, to Luke in terms of Orthodox Judaism, we at the end of the day, kind of like we go with winners. In order to adapt and succeed, you have to go with winners. And if the computer is the best device at picking out winners, you have to go with what the computer says. So just the direction of technology will have a huge impact and pressure, according to the current scenario capitalistic system, of people doing what they have to do to get ahead, and they're going to follow the recommendation of the computer because that's the best path to getting ahead, as opposed to a central planning strategy advice where would also presumably but just that power of the impact is that, okay, I'm not so sure that the implementation of this technology is going to be good or bad for humanity. And you think like the Hindus and rejection of modernism and industrialism, or the Haredim as rejectors of industrialization. And that you could look at it like that and say, like, no, industrialization was a bad idea. Like, I'm still opposed to it. But like, no, we already live in the industrial age. All over like agricultural and products and general way that we live in America is a product of industrialization. It's almost impossible to not live an industrialized life. And what happens when they get rid of cash money and everything is digital and these various things, like saying if you don't adapt, it's going to be problematic. Saying Doooovid and Babs, that we're just going to click a few things on a computer and have a bunch of stuff, and people that aren't adapted, saying like you're not going to be able to walk into the store and get what you want because you didn't adapt. So it's going to be technology per force that basically say like this is the adaptation that the computer recommends, and the people who are succeeding are the people that work together the best with the machine.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, that might just be the way that it goes. I mean, eh, pursuit of profit. You can't be can't play principle games really with things like that, regardless of what your thoughts are on the direction we're headed. So you were talking earlier, just to go back to some of the initial streams of the show. Sorry, the initial themes of the show, the themes of the stream. I'm just gonna quickly rattle off basically exactly what I've been doing during COVID, maybe so that other people can take some advice, maybe. First of all, speculation, lots of market speculation and aggressive buying, especially during that big COVID dip. I knew that at some point someone would do something, and I just felt it in my bones that there would be, there had to be some sort of bailout, some sort of pumping, and lo and behold, I was right. I wasn't quite as smart as Kyle. I didn't have that many put positions going into the whole crash, so I missed out on that. But I bought a lot of super underpriced equities, specifically of like leveraged assets, things like, and don't do what I did, kids, but things like, TQQQ, or like double leveraged mortgage monthly pay, things like that, which still I don't think have recovered. Things like Oxford Lane Capital, when it was at like $2 or something like that. Now it's gone up since then. That's a solid dividend payer. And basically what I would do is when I saw that the market had really bottomed out, and that did hurt me, but I figured I'm such a small player with a tiny amount of money that I lose doesn't really matter. So I bought in aggressively, continued to buy in, continued to buy in, continued to buy in, and I was rewarded for that. I sold all my call positions after, basically I would, with the big pump, I had call positions as well as equities, and I sold my call positions and I kept my equities, and things are going well. And yes, the economy may go down again, but for now things are going pretty well for me, and a lot of those profits I locked in because I sold those calls. And yeah, that among with biotech plays, things have been going well for me. I shorting the VIX as well has it's been not super profitable but decently profitable. Yeah, or VIX ETFs really. So that's what I've been doing in terms of public things, in terms of my own ventures. A piece of equity in a development in a gentrifying area. Now, normally, I can't really talk about this in terms of advice, because in order to access things like this, you either need to be an accredited investor or know an accredited investor who's willing to set up some sort of umbrella agreement for you. But the other thing that I've done, which I do recommend, is I now have equity in a recently minted moving, hauling, and demolition company. And that is a very, very easy business that there's always room for. That I think if people are looking for a small quick thing, to be able to, the people are like, oh, I want to start a business. It's easy to do that. All you need is a truck and to fill out some licensing BS, and finding work is relatively easy. It's just simply a question of going out and asking, looking around, passing by construction sites and saying, hey, can I haul this for you? And it's very easy to scale. There are lots of people, Americans and recent immigrants alike, who are champing at the bit to access that sort of work. So it's incredibly scalable. It's very easy to get a lot of employees and turn that into a stream of passive income. So that's basically what I've been up to. And yeah, I don't know. Aside from that, I've also just been helping raise money for bigger people, not developers per se, but finance people who are interested in investing and need money. Now that's something that's harder for most people to do, but yeah, that's a rough sense of what I've been up to during this whole pandemic, and it's really, really rewarded me very well. Right now, just looking at my portfolio, I'm at something like 118% returns. Although I think in the last, since the week started yesterday, I think it's probably at something like 110 now. But yeah, no. Anyone who was aggressive and YOLO'd it should probably see similar returns themselves, or at least something disproportionate depending on how they played the market. What about you, Doovid? What have you been up to? You've got your store going on, but how exactly? If you want to go more into the details of how you execute that, I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I won't do a screen share. I mean, I have my eBay store. I've done a week in review, some like a little overview, like price discovery, how you price objects, little like negotiating, and some of the analytical tools that are offered to help with the price discovery. I'm glad you're active and you're being successful. There's been a lot of market action. I didn't get involved in the market. Maybe I should have. There was a lot of action. There's a lot of money to be made. Options definitely a very good way to make large sums of money. Although most options expire worthless or whatever. Just blatant financial advice for obviously anyone sitting on money. You got to invest it. And the more you know about investing it, probably the better retirement savings you're going to have. Versus a person who's actually in finance and investment, and that's what they do for their living. They try to make money on money, and then a person, once you have a sizable sum of money where you could be an investor and just randomly consider all types of deals, real estate, pieces of business, stocks, and you become a bigger player. You even become owners of some of these companies or sit on the board of directors in various things. So Doovid's kind of small time. I've thought about maybe joining like a local real estate venture. To make your screen bigger there. I made your screen smaller because I could hardly see you, but and Judas was on, but I missed what book you were showing there. But
unfortunately, the autofocus doesn't seem to carry over, but I'm just trying to show some of the skeptics in the chat my returns. Now, of course, this is a tiny account. This is a tiny account, and I'm not sure if you could mirror these returns or if you'd simply be willing to, psychologically speaking, with a big account. But yeah, no, it's about 117 is what I was trying to show. But yeah, I guess I'll just I'll probably do my own stream about this at some point in time or another. But yeah, no, it's very doable. It's very doable. You just need to a little bit of it's basically a combination of YOLO aggression, options, and perhaps a bit of foresight, knowledge, perhaps. Word gets around, and sometimes you just have this gut feeling when you know exactly the right thing to buy into.
Yeah, I'm more a cultural critic I would say like Judaism is an entrepreneurship religion in many ways. And, we were talking about with Luke from a perspective, and, there's definitely a connection of Judaism and money, and especially when we talk about Jewish law, because Jewish law, in my estimation, the biggest factor in changing Jewish law is, in fact, making money. Because, generally, Jewish law usually gets shifted the most for health. Like, almost all Jewish law could be overridden for a person's health or possibly security. But the cases where Jewish law is overridden for health or security, maybe in Israel for security, but for health are relatively pretty limited. Maybe, specific people, God forbid, when they get very sick, have a bunch of questions for their rabbi, or COVID-19, where you have overwhelming public health scenarios that might override typical Jewish law, like not going to synagogue or even closing down schools or the various things that we're doing. But business practices is the most common thing that's needed to affect Jewish law. And generally, Jewish law has a mechanism that says that how important is the Jewish law, and we want people to succeed, and that for a person making money is a reasonable reason to bend Jewish law. I mean, there's ways and methods to do it. So that's been an interesting perspective from speaking to Luke 4, and then also the internal value of money within Judaism. It's kind of mentioned that generally the biggest factor in moving the Jewish community is probably factually money, and in terms just for how the community works, and the larger business community versus the Jewish institutional community and the rabbinic community versus the larger collective business community. And even though as a Jewish businessman you really could only be as powerful as the rabbi you get behind, on the larger scheme of things, probably the most greatest factor of what changes Jewish communities is basically what makes us successful. And Jewish law will mirror the fact that Jews adapted to the practices that make us most successful. So like when I do my streams by the downtown synagogue, I mentioned we're in a party district. So by the downtown synagogue we got party promoters and DJs and artists. But here in the suburbs by the synagogues, there's basically zero party promoters and artists and DJs, and we got dentists and doctors and real estate professions, accounting, insurance agents. In Detroit, we have those also. But there's certain adaptability that Jewish law. Okay, we're in downtown, and this is the area. This is, so to say, what the Goyim do. It's a party district, so it makes sense that you're going to have Jews in those professions. And certainly in Manhattan, there's I remember going around to all types of synagogues. You have the Millinery Synagogue was the hat making district. You have the Actors Guild Synagogue, the Charles Street Synagogue, and these various areas, and almost all of them mirror. In Chelsea, you have a Chelsea Synagogue, and all these areas largely mirror the neighborhoods they're in. The Jews that are inside the synagogues don't largely mirror the neighborhoods that those synagogues are in.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I'm not sure how much you want to straight up turn your channel to you're indulging your own information, or you want to be a financial guru like that.
No, I would never give financial advice because what I do is there are like 5 reasons, but and there are already too many financial gurus out there. The financial gurus who I think are giving the best advice, it's some exoteric stuff about buy and hold S&P 500 ETFs, and dollar cost average into S&P 500 ETFs and buy a little bit of fractional shares every day and you'll be rich by the time you're 60. Yeah, that's good financial advice. I think most people should follow that.
Yeah, and it's saying, Doooovid was, money is important. Even on Luke, I was mentioning, you're saying, okay, you want to be a doctor, or you want to be in museums or something, but having money for all of those things is important. And if you're at a museum and you're an art curator, and even if you're the head of some section of the museum, it's going to be different if you have big bank accounts. Curator, and even if you're the head of some section of the museum, it's going to be different if you have big bank accounts. Curator, and even if you're Okay, I just muted Elliott. Hopefully he'll fix that, but it looks like his thing is working. Just had the feedback. But saying money is extremely important, not just in Judaism, but in Judaism, money is probably more important than for Goyim. But money is extremely important for everybody. And I like more commenting on the relationship to Judaism or Jewish law or culture or larger trends, and people who in things like real estate or overall what are the better fields or sectors to be in. But if someone actually wants advice on within the path of what's the exact best way, where to buy property or something like that, that's you're probably you're better off seeking an expert, like a doctor. Doooovid I might have done streams on COVID-19, but if you need medical advice, seek a doctor. So let's hope Elliott is home, and if you unmute yourself, and hopefully it's working.
What's up, brother?
Hell yeah. Finally!
Doooovid, can you hear me?
Yeah, it sounds good now.
Okay, sorry, man. Yeah, I was trying to get in on my phone, and just couldn't happen. Couldn't make it happen. I had all the bars and everything, but somehow it wouldn't work.
In fact, I'm kind of hungry. I have this Greek salad I bought earlier, so if you want to give me like a few minute reprise, the Babs and Elliott carry it for a while.
All right, sure, man. Enjoy your salad. Hey, Babs, how you doing, man? So the reason I was interested is I just wanted to get like the you're doing real estate now, right? And I'm just trying to understand what people are saying, why prices haven't collapsed like they have, like theory says they ought to have.
I mean, I think a portion of it is, REITs and REIT like, big institutional players have just had money thrown at them, by the federal government, the reserve, or who I don't even know where it's coming from, but they're being pumped up, they're being artificially kept aloft. And what I worry about is, an insolvency crisis, specifically when it comes to these, retail. These retail people can't pay rent. Will they even be able to fill the locations? I'm seeing a lot of for rent commercial spaces that are not being filled, and at some point that will have some sort of ramification. The only question is what.
Right. And then you couple that with this trend of, I don't know if you heard this, but basically Lake Tahoe, everyone's moving to Lake Tahoe. Everyone in San Francisco is just buying stuff in Tahoe sight unseen because they want to get the hell out of the city. And I see every block has got a for rent sign, and I would go years at a time without seeing a single for rent sign. So I see residential in the big urban spaces being demolished. I see commercial being demolished, and yet it has had no impact on prices. So is this just a bigger balloon than the 2008, 2009?
That's a fucking good question. And honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. I think that the best person to ask in regards to that would probably be Monsieur. I mean, I'm sure he knows, but Doooovid might even have some takes on that. I really can't say, because I just don't. It's weird. It's I've never seen a crisis like this before, and it just a whole and the way it's being handled is also super weird. So I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
So, well, here's what I think. So then you have all of these riots, right? You have all the major blue cities rioting, and all of the people with money leaving town, and so that's going to be a huge net loss on the tax base. So what are they going to do? They're going to jack up their local taxes, right? On local real estate, it seems. They're going right. There's, it's not like those public schools are going anywhere, right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
So if all of the red people move out of the city and you're left with the blue in the middle of this rotting urban detritus, the only thing they have is to raise taxes. It's not like they can say, well, let's just start being industrious all of a sudden, right? The only trigger they have is taxes. So that's going to be that could just deflate the whole balloon rather quickly, it seems.
I mentioned earlier that the large reason is probably that fleeing capital needs a stable place to put it, and the U.S. real estate markets are one of the most stable investments. So the economic reasons to put money into property might be worse right now in terms of an investment and a cash property to make money off of rent and running the property. However, just because other things have become so unstable and people are taking their money out of that and need someplace to put it, that alone could be the reason for the increased real estate prices, despite all of the other factors that would indicate they should go down.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just hoping to get some insight. But one thing that I think is going to grow is just government sector. Anything that's related to public hiring, public expenditure, public road projects, anything that has to do with the public sector hiring, I think is going to potentially be a growth area. But I see I was just in a shopping center, and they're like at a 20th. They're at a fifth of, they're at 20% of their usual traffic. They're just these weird zombie-like ghost towns compared to what they used to be. And I just can't imagine that this is just sustainable ad infinitum. Anyway. Who's John Wolfe? Oh, wait. Who's carpeted? Oh, that's Judas, you fucking spurg. Anyway, man, just a little Ricardo's clearly drunk. He's been drunk posting super chats. Yeah, man, you get a wrench? How much is a wrench? Everyone's muted here. Am I the only one not muted?
Yeah, I guess I was trying to eat some Greeks out. So, Elliot, you want to share? We got 20-some people watching. How the COVID-19 lockdown has been affecting you, or if you're just do IT type work, if you're able to work remotely, is it causing you to work more, become more entrepreneurial?
It's had no impact because it's actually improved my life, because I used to have to go to one meeting a week in person, and now I get to go to 0 meetings a week, which is just bliss. So other than that, yeah, I'm completely remote. So it's had almost no impact.
And you're saying you're
in fact, it's made my life. It's also freed me from these ridiculous social events that you're supposed to do at work, like getting together with your colleagues at work to sort of build community and all that kind of shit. I don't have to do any of that either. So it's like I don't know if you remember on Curb Your Enthusiasm when Larry's mother dies, and it's turns out to be this blessing because it just frees him from all of these social commitments. Do you remember that episode? Mute, David. You're muted.
Yes, I was trying to eat my salad, but no, I don't watch contain really any sort of entertainment. But I mean, you know how to code. You feel confident in your profession that even if it's remote, that you're going to be able to continue being a valuable part of the labor market. And what about international visa competition? Do you think that if they limit the amount of H-1B1 visas, or will that make you possibly more successful? Where will it limit, or does it non-impact?
I think Trump has curtailed those. I'm not sure. My phone still rings, from old resumes, so that's always a good indication that people are out there actively hiring. Though I think what H-1Bs actually do is they hurt entry-level people. It sort of denies them, it deprives them of a sort of a introduction to the industry. And I think that's been that's what really it really hurts kids that are just out of college that need that first leg on the career ladder, because now they're competing with people with with technical ability, but they look really good on paper. So I don't know. That's where I think the H-1Bs have taken their greatest toll. But these people aren't happy here. These H-1Bs are just miserable fuckers. They're really just not happy. They're often in these sort of indentured servitude relationships with their middlemen, and they really get sick of it after a while and just fuck off back to India.
So what about streaming? Have you been
Almost not.
hopping on streams, watching streams?
No,
Claire,
I've been
Dennis?
watching streams. I've been watching basically Luke, and that's it. I am part of this anti-dopamine craze where I take very intentional breaks from the internet. I make soup. I do shit like that that's just not technical and very manual and satisfying in a very old school way. So I am part of this. I've always been a Luddite, you know.
Angry. So what do you want to share? What have you been up to? What have you been reading? What have you been thinking about?
I just finished reading Lord of the Flies. I started reading The Republic by Plato, learning Nach. And I have a book recommendation for Mr. Blott.
Hit me, man. Hit me.
The Universal Garden of Amunah by Rabbi Shalom Arush.
I have that book on my shelf.
So what's the key lesson? What's the key lesson that I miss? What am I missing by not having read that?
It explains the Noahide law.
Oh, okay. I can't promise you that I'm going to read it. Are you baked too, Judas?
No.
Oh, okay. Yes, you are. Admit it. You are such a spur.
Is that what you always look like, or is that?
No, only when I'm with my fellow Yehudim.
So is Babs on break?
Yeah, apparently. Hey, you upset that Kim Jong-il has ordered all dogs to be confiscated from North Korea?
I don't follow random things really. That's it. So
I think they're planning a barbecue.
I think it's a meat shortage myself. Yeah.
I guess it's either Torah or making money, or like news related to the coming of Messiah.
Dogs are evil animals. Jews should not have dogs. All Jews should stop having dogs. Give up your dog.
What about cats there, Sam?
Cats require pisak halacha, but you're not subject to Jewish law because it's from the dad's side.
That's right.
So
don't worry about it.
So I'm cool.
Angry. What about Minyan? Have you been going to outdoor Minyan? How have you been praying?
I stopped going to synagogue because it wasn't spiritually uplifting.
But what about the obligation to pray with a Minyan?
I pray at home. I don't want to go to synagogue.
And you've been streaming recently. I saw you were recasting some of Luke's stuff, but I haven't. I see you in the chat every once in a while.
When my StreamYards comes back on the 21st on my Angry Persian Mischling channel, I'm going to restream Luke Ford's coverage of BLM.
And what?
Down. BLM is evil. They break the Noahide law.
And what type of streams do you watch? I see you in the chat on various things like Claire or like Jonathan Pohl or Halsey, Luke. Where you at hanging out?
The I just got Hail Judas from Ricardo Williams. Nice. Today was a good day.
And are you studying like Talmud? Are you?
Yeah, I'm studying Gemara. I'm holding a daf Yatet of Amud Beis of Gemara Makot. And I'm learning, and I do Nach Yomi, and I do a parak of Sefer Yehoshua in Ivrit every day. I learned the word Ashedot today. I learned Ashedot. I was really happy about that.
Good for you.
Waterfall. Waterfalls. Ashedah is waterfall. Ashedot is waterfall.
And what about you, Elliot? Are you involved in any spiritual pursuits? Are you practicing Buddhism or going to any temples or?
Yeah, I'm kind of lapsed.
You're a lapsed Buddhist?
Yeah.
I mean, you chanting or like what do you do to keep yourself sane?
I've been doing a lot of swimming.
We got your own like private pool or?
No, I go in the ocean, man. I put on a wetsuit and I go in the ocean.
Okay. I mean, how far do you live from the beach?
Yeah, I'm pretty close. Pretty close.
I mean, you could walk from where you live.
I could walk to a beach, but I don't like that beach. It's a beach that I like that I drive to because it's just a better atmosphere, fewer plebs.
Are you surfing?
Well, I do. Do you know what boogie boarding is?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done it, but yeah, I think I've seen that. I mean, it's just like surfing, but laying down.
Yeah, and you wear flippers though. You got to wear these scuba flippers, and so there's a lot of exercise involved, you know. And then every once in a while, you catch a wave. It's fun. I know you don't do fun, do it, but
no. I mean, you ever stand up? I mean, you catch a wave and stand up even.
I tried a few times, but for me to learn how to surf, I'd have to take lessons. I'd have to show it. Like timing the wave is like really, it's really hard unless you know what you're doing. You got to figure out where it's going to break and then where you need to be, and then. So short answer, no. But I'd love to be able to, though. It's really like a sublime exercise. But the key is being in the water, Doooovid. So you want to get all that salt water because your body drinks in all the magnesium from the salt water. Gets you really relaxed, man. You know what I'm saying? No need for cannabis, Doooovid. I don't need cannabis.
Jonathan Pohl showed up if he wants to give an update. I don't know where Babs, if he's coming back around. I'm not sure, but
Babs in the private chat says he's with his friends, but he's listening.
Okay, well, at least he has friends. More than me.
Hey, Doooovid, my chess game is really bad now. It's been going downhill precipitously. I haven't been keeping it up, making really silly mistakes.
Yeah, I haven't been coaching for a while. Like right when the lockdown played, I was playing a lot of chess and mostly variants like Crazy House and Horde. I was liking those two, but then I just stopped playing. And the chess club's been canceled for like 4 months because of COVID-19. So I'm unclear when it's going to reopen. But I did a whole bunch of research on decision-making, thought processes in chess, and I was going to release quite a few streams on psychology and the understanding of what goes on in a person's head when they think about chess. But I haven't gotten around to doing that.
Yeah, so what do you talk about? Candidate moves and things like that? You're going to introduce that concept?
Well, it's not going to be like how to play chess or get better at chess. It's more going to be using chess to explain how people go about decision-making processes in general.
Right. But are you talking about calculation? I mean, there are a lot of chess concepts that are applicable to regular decision making.
I have here like 40 different articles that I read, and I actually read some of them quite a few times. So I was going to cover kind of the machine learning and artificial intelligence and how the current best computer programs are going about it. I was going to cover the history of thought of chess psychology and thought in chess. I'm going to go from things like, rapid eye movement studies that involve studying, players' eye movement while thinking, to memory and recall. I'm going to discuss Kotov's Think Like a Grandmaster. I'm going to review some of the most famous studies like de Groot's Thought and Choice in Chess, and through the most current understandings, questions like IQ in chess, and also the question of expertise. What's the difference between so say a person who sees more at the chessboard versus an other, and studies related to chess's education, just like all there's thousands and thousands of studies related to the game of chess. So I'm not exactly sure I'm going to structure these streams or stretch a theme through them, but my goal was kind of to give an overview of the current state of the hard problem of consciousness and how the brain goes about producing thought and making choices and decision using chess, because chess has been widely studied, and almost all the major psychologists and leaders on decision making have thought about chess specifically, because chess is a classic example of choice, where you have multiple different choices and have to go through some sort of process to make the best choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, but it's gonna be. You're really pulling in the shekels tonight, there, David.
Oh, Ricardo, yeah, I'm saying that, and he's given.
I think he hit a threshold, man. I think he's like rolling in dough these days.
I hope he is. Like, I mean, I don't know about Ricardo, but I hope he's got a similar story to Babs, and like he's going to come on and tell me how he's like a landlord, and it's like how great it feels to be a landlord.
So would you? I would hate to be a landlord, man. It's a lot of bullshit you have to do. It's not simply just collecting checks, man.
You have to maintain.
If you're building, like, if my building sprung a leak in the roof, collecting checks, I'd be on the hook. I'd have to pay to get that roof fixed, which might mean me taking out a loan from the bank. It's a huge, expensive job. So not all, I don't know. I think there's more risk in being a landlord than people give it credit for. But I bet at the end of the day, yeah, it's a pretty easy way to make a living.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially if, let's say, you're house hacking. Like, let's say you're a small player. You're just someone, you're just a random hardworking citizen. You're not, a wealthy person or someone who's been investing their entire lives. And, you're thinking, okay, well, I'll do a house hack. I'll do like an FHA house hack, or maybe even, like I'll get a duplex, or maybe I'll even, put a trailer on my property, and I'll live in the trailer for the next few years, the next 2 years, and I'll rent out the main house, rent out one of the something that's like 1, 2, 3 units, maybe rent out the basement, something like that. If that rent stops coming in, your finances can be thrown into absolute discord, when you're one of these smaller rentiers. So yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I mean, I'm sure I'll take that Greek salad off your hands. I don't know. Depends.
Well,
Does it have blue or feta crumble in it?
All right, here, listen. So, Babs, listen to this. So, in San Francisco, there's like this building boom on, right? giant high rises going up on every available acre that they can find. But meanwhile, COVID hits, and now everyone's headed for the hills. So you've got like decreasing demand, and then you have increasing supply. So what happened in this case? I mean, people who finance those buildings aren't going to be able to fill them at the rents they're expecting to fill them at. There could be great deals to be had.
Yeah, I mean, see, the thing is, I mean, I've seen those big developments all around San Francisco back when I used to live in Silicon Valley, and you know, a lot of them seemed empty at that point in time as well. My guess is, and this will likely continue, is they'll be able to find wealthy, often non-American real estate investors to be able to buy up the condos, because I mean, for one, they make an excellent means of offshoring. You know, if you buy, let's say, real estate in America, usually, especially if, let's say, you're from China or from Russia or something like that, you know, it's it would be a smart move. So, you know, in places like Silicon Valley, while of course I think inevitably there is some sort of correction coming there at some point in time, maybe, I feel like those buildings, they're probably always going to be able to sell them, those big development condos, because yeah, no, there's you know, out of America real estate investors, and you know, like, you know, wealthy foreign investors like to use it as a form of offshoring. But I agree that things are unsustainable to some degree. Go ahead.
So is that always going to be the case that?
I mean, that's the question. You know, there are less millionaires and billionaires being minted in China every day, and you know, will people want to invest in America? I mean, I don't know. That's a very good question.
Yeah. I have no ideas. I'm just trying to piece it. There's like, you know, I was here in the early 90s, and there were squats in San Francisco, like buildings that were empty, and they were people living in them doing drugs because, you know, there wasn't the demand. This was in between, you know, this was before the big tech boom, you know. And so I've seen like long stretches of time where this hasn't been a boom town. And if I could have known now, what you know, it would have been the buying opportunity of a lifetime, like early 90s San Francisco.
Yeah, well, people say the same thing about you know, 80s New York. You know, some of the disgusting warehouses in places like, you know, Hell's Kitchen, and you know, I mean, Hudson Yards is a prime example. You know, Hudson Yards was this gross industrial area, and it got bought up by developers, and now it's being made into this, you know, silly kind of boutique Instagram neighborhood that you know, sort of wealthy upper middle class types who are not connected to anything at all can you know, spend their time and get their you know, high-end chain store goods and luxury apparel, and tourists from Dubai can spend money. You know, there are a lot of things like that. Will there be any more of them? Are there any other major? I mean, that's the question. You know, look for you know, what are the San Franciscos of the 90s, the 90s San Franciscos of today? What are the 80s New Yorks of today? The question is, are there any? The question is are large urban areas in America even going to, is that cycle even going to be a relevant thing as time progresses? And I mean, I'm really not sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if remote work has, you know, become as acceptable as it is, you know, why? In the old days, that was the draw, right? You'd had to go to the office. And because you had to go to the office, you wanted to live near the office. Therefore, you had to live in Manhattan. But if you no longer need to go to the office, what's really drawing you there? Why would you want to live in such squalid conditions? So I could see like there'd be like a mini renaissance of like these really small American cities, these inland American cities that are maybe, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 hour drive from like a major metro, but like a Portland, Maine type of thing, Providence, Rhode Island, Louisville, Kentucky, these type of things. There could just be a lot of, I don't know, Lake Tahoe, like the Lake Tahoe example. I don't know if you've been to Lake Tahoe, but
Yeah, Reno.
idyllic spots, but they're still within striking distance of like a major city. I could see those really taking off.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, there are a few places that I have on my radar as well, but nothing's a sure thing. Yeah.
Fun to watch.
Yeah. So thank you very much for having me, Doooovid. I'm going to sign off for probably 20 to 30 minutes, although if you're still going after that, I'd love to rejoin. But this has been a great conversation, and I look forward. I'll be listening, but I have some stuff to attend. We got to have another conversation like this sometime. Elliott and Judas, great to hear from you both. Like Elliott, you really need to start getting involved in these conversations again. It's been a while since I've seen you around. On the Church of Entropy show. Doooovid has completely cucked you ever since that one altercation.
I know. He's an alpha Chad, man. There's nothing I can do, man.
You've been thrown out of the inner circle.
I beat him fair and square over the chessboard. He wanted to settle it over the chessboard. It was a bad idea. But I mean, he's pretty good at chess. But he's
no Doooovid though. He's no Doooovid. There's just let's be clear about that.
Yeah, because I guess I'm using StreamYards and I have the 20-hour max. I might. You
want to cut it?
Just end the stream. Yeah, I don't have too much.
Yeah, I'm done too, David. It's a midweek. I shouldn't be doing this anyway. I should be.
But if you want to give some closing words, I'm glad to have you on the stream. You've been here. You've been here before.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we can get the micro streams going again until the election. I think we all need a steady diet of micro streams. So Babscast, we got to hear from Mansour. We have to get the old gang back together to cope with this electoral stress that we're going to be under for the next 3 months.
I might keep it going if Halsey wants to pop on, but yeah, I mean the likelihood elections are going to hype up media, and it's going to make streaming more popular. You're going to be more streaming with and so I'm doing Luke right now, but so that's increasing my streaming. If I wasn't doing it, I'm not sure. I guess Halsey's not going to be popping on, but yeah, I would like to do more streaming. And say Luke right now isn't having a whole bunch of people on, and he's got his thing like pretty down, like news. And I don't think Luke is going to necessarily go back into having larger conversations. It might be too risky for his channel, or he's got it too professionalized that he doesn't want to spend the time teaching technology or getting people up to snuff. So right now, I mean, Week in Review, Jennifer's the only one I know doing that. I don't know if Jonathan, he streams, but I don't know if he's introducing so many new characters or anybody that's really introducing new characters. So besides for through Jennifer.
So do you think Trump wins?
I've been predicting that Trump might win by a landslide just due to the COVID-19 larger impact that Biden's strategy of running on vote for me, I'll make you wear a mask. It doesn't sound like a good strategy. And I think the Democrats, the George Floyd COVID-19 strategy that they may have locked themselves into going into elections could backfire, because I don't think schools are going to open up. In this area, they're definitely not opening up. So I'm sure in your area it's pretty unlikely schools are going to open up, and I think that's going to have a huge effect on urban areas that are the major blue areas. And I don't think Biden and Harris are going to have a bunch of confidence, and objectively they're going to be saying what people don't want to hear. They're going to, Trump is going to be saying, probably stuff that's more popular even among African American general Democratic base. No one's going to rush to the polls so that Biden can force us to wear a mask. And just thinking about it, Biden, you're talking about April next year. Biden, if he wins, he will become president at the end of January, and then his 3-month mandate. You're talking about mandating a mask out till April next year, and no, I can't imagine people lining up for that. and the Democratic cities, the police, the crime, it's increased. And so the media right now, I think it's going to backfire because it's just like everyone can tell the media is lying, and they're just trying to spin it and manipulate people into voting for corruption. And also the COVID-19, because there's not going to be any major rallies, the level of corruption in the Democratic Party is going to be huge because they're going to do these fundraisers and there's going to be these gaps and it's going to be blatant. And if it was in front of a rally, in front of a bunch of people, at least there's energies and people are knocking on doors. But it's just like, Biden's interview with Cardi B, and and then he's going to do a private call with a bunch of wealthy people, and it's going to slip out. And that's why I'm predicting by the time it gets to election day, a lot could happen, but Trump might even win by a landslide.
Yeah, I'm starting to come around to that. I'm trying to check my. I have an optimism, like a tendency towards optimism, so I tend to see the.
I didn't say that's what I want. That's just my analysis. Whether that's good or bad, I'm just predicting that. I'm not saying that I want that.
I definitely want that to happen. I think we need I think we need an utter, thorough repudiation of this woke bullshit. But I actually think that it's reaching into Normistan, and I think there's going to be a big backlash that will be a Trump landslide, and with coattails too. But we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah, so I guess it looks like Halsey just popped in the chat a second. So, definitely chat anytime. Like, StreamYard sells this 20 hours a max month. We do week in review. I'm sure Jennifer's happy to have you anytime. Although, we've been pushing forward in these ideas, like the quantum consciousness. Now we got like differential equations, and both of our models have vastly increased. So they week in review has gotten increasingly technical. Although we still bring in people if they want to talk about things, but because we've been doing it more than a year, we've gotten quite technical. And I think even the other week, her explaining reincarnation in scientific terms, I think we could publish. I think almost we could write a book. So like multiple truth hypothesis. Almost like I could write a book, or Jennifer could write a book on reincarnation.
Yeah, I'll start getting involved, but lately I'm just so narrow focused on politics and this election that I can't really tune into sort of abstract ideas right now. I'm really nervous, man. I think
that's the only thing that kept me streaming, because the politics just wasn't interesting enough to talk about. But yeah, we did week in review every week for the slow news cycle. So me and Luke could always talk Judaism. I love Judaism. I could talk Judaism hours every day for the rest of my life. But news generally for me, even during the election cycle, right now, I didn't even check, once we're done, I'll probably watch in 2-speed, highlights of the Democratic primary. But there's probably not even that much insight on it. And it's kind of like what I'm saying is I think it's just propaganda that's going to hit people in a way, and it's going to, there's nothing really to unify Biden, Harris, the larger coalition of minorities. When Doooovid was arguing originally, the coalition of minorities, Biden, the Democratic Party aren't really taking a mantle of leadership that makes sense. It's kind of just identity, hatred, there's no larger vision. And Richard Spencer was probably right that Bernie Sanders probably would have beat Trump. Biden, I think, is going to lose by a landslide, but I think Trump is weak, and Bernie Sanders, had he largely just been an okay candidate, he might have beat Trump.
Well, I think the value of these streams is not the headlines, but it's sort of the report from the field. These boots on the ground. What's your day-to-day experience been like, vis-a-vis COVID or anything else, that we can sort of understand what the trends are, what's going to happen. I think anecdotal stories are actually very valuable source of information.
Yeah, but we talk about that on me and Jennifer try to put into a scientific model when we talk about facts versus narrative, and from the scientific level, narratives aren't really useful, but from the rhetorical or political level, really all you have is narrative. You can't draw any of these policy things down to facts. So it's all about winning people over to narrative. And when you hit points like elections, when people make a decision, it could imply big changes to society. Relatively, elections have consequences, and the direction that society goes. To some extent, elections may be from the largest determinative factors of the direction in which society goes. But the level of incompetence is just so extreme. Looking at COVID-19, everyone across the board, from Democrats, Republicans, scientists, experts, Dr. Fauci, the Center for Disease Control, and all these various agencies, the WHO. It just seems incompetency at all levels, and nowhere can you find like an oasis of competence.
Well, I think at one point incompetence actually was eclipsed by intent. I think people decided that this was the easiest way to tear down Trump. I think COVID started off as a real thing, and I think I guess it's lethal to some group of people, but I don't think it's orders of magnitude more lethal than a normal flu. Not that I have any scientific understanding of this, but I think there's been a choice to prolong the disaster because it is easiest. It deprives Trump of his fundamental strong suit, which was running on the economy. So that's the only thing that explains sort of the hysterical reaction to hydroxychloroquine and any other potential information that mitigates this disaster. So I don't think there's really that much doubt. I mean, when you also consider the Swedish experience and how it's basically petered out completely, like herd immunity does seem to have worked in Sweden.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, but yeah, I mean, we don't need to argue about that.
Yeah,
I want to do another stream.
Yeah,
I would say, my understanding is that we're at the worst situation possible, and from a certain perspective, kind of the worst case scenario is what's happening. Like in the U.S., we're averaging over 50,000 cases a day. The upward trend is likely that it's going to be 100,000. We had hoped that during the summer, caseload would go down, and it didn't. And even in Europe, in places where it's down,
the original predictions were in the millions, if you remember. Remember that?
Yeah, but that still might happen.
Huh?
That still may happen. And
everyone's going to eventually be exposed to this. Those with weak immune systems are going to get hit more badly. I don't think you can actually prevent a population. You can't stop a virus is so small. You need an electron microscope to measure it. So you have to think about how small these particles really are and how unfeasible it is to use a barrier method to somehow prevent them. You just have to operate from the assumption that you're going to be exposed to it. And if your immune system's strong, it's not going to be a big deal. But if your immune system's weak, it could be a big deal.
Well, we'll see. I'm saying the experts are predicting that it's going to uptick in November, and it may be the worst it's ever been. And it said, Biden is running on forcing people to wear masks for 3 months, and that's talking about April next month. So if Biden wins, you're saying we're wearing masks until at least April next month.
We're not going to be that. People are so sick of this. I was at the beach the other day, and I would say 10% of the people had masks on. Nobody these masks are ridiculous. And I think people are just sick of it. And I think they're ready to roll the dice and just get the virus and be done with it. I'm 50. I think I've had it. I think there's a 50% chance I've already had it. I was sick this past December, and it was like an annoying respiratory issue that lasted like a month. But I eventually got through it, and it wasn't that catastrophic.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could be tested for antibodies, and we'll see. I mean, saying this is a complicated issue, and it looks like it's going to be going on for a while, and just how much society has changed over a few months. Could be where it's only the beginning. Especially if this lasts longer, and like I said, like it doesn't look like schools are reopening, and that could have drastic effects on the stability factor that society has had for a long period of time. Doesn't mean we can't recover from it, but it's definitely going to be interesting. But I guess I'll just call it a night. So
All right, brother. All right,
appreciate Elliott. Thanks for coming on, and hope we'll talk again. And you know where to find me. I'm sure we'll bump into each other again.
Absolutely, man. All right, thanks for having me, dude.
Okay, yeah, have a great night.
All right,
and thanks everyone for tuning in. 25 people. Sorry to end the stream with 25 people tuned in. Babs, appreciate him having come around. Get to talk a little bit more business and get the Jews coast to coast, East Coast to West Coast. Pretty cool. John in the chat and saying some interesting things, and Goose also on the West Coast. Appreciate everybody. And Ultra T, all the regulars. So we'll see what's coming up. Hopefully I will produce those streams on chess and decision making. I'm not sure if the people who are watching now are going to be that interested in that, but I don't mind having more conversations like this. Is Babs around and he can't stream on his channel and wants to do occasional streams. I like these conversations. Luke, I've been appearing on his channel, but basically every day, a lot of Torah stuff. I have asked the rabbis that I prepared, but if people want to come and talk Torah, definitely is interesting. Any of these subjects, like I'm talking about with Luke, the Mark Shapiro literature, Maimonides, 13 Principles. I love this stuff. Yeah, I mean Halsey definitely. I like Halsey. We have different styles, so he's doing news or commentary. But anytime Halsey's down to talking Jewish theology, occasionally I have comments on like news and issues and business or whatever. But Jewish theology, definitely, I'm always down for that. And hopefully, Luke. Moving into that, we're going to be able to create a little bit of an audience for that and hopefully some interest. And, that's more what interests me. Like, I like talking and chilling with friends, but that's not really my style. Like more, facts and advancing scholarship and stuff like that. But definitely week in review, colloquium with streamers, people getting together to discuss best practices of streaming and just scheduling streamings. And I even like Church of Entropy, clerical, formal debates. I want to get people to do research and present to do formal debates. Although, that's not according to everybody's interest. And it also requires a certain amount of work because you can't really just wing formal debates. You actually have to prepare presentations, and then also people who work and research things, people who have ideas, not just necessarily like shooting the breeze, but people who have been thinking about things for years and want to present things and discuss them. So for I was like Halsey, Luke Ford, various people that stream all the time. They could stream hours every day. That's not Doooovid style. Like, you're not going to find me streaming every night. It's going to be more topical. That it's because I'm talking with a specific person, or because I have a specific topic I want to talk about. Because I don't have it in me to stream every night like Halsey or Luke. But it's a great service they offer to the public that they do. So God bless everyone. Have a great night, and stay tuned. comment in the video, find me on Discord, Twitter, or reach out. Or these days, I'm appearing on Luke sometime between like 6 and 7 most nights Eastern time. I guess 4 or 5 his 3 or 4 his time, and it's becoming a little bit more structured, but it's unclear exactly. We're talking about Jewish subjects, and occasionally I give a little bit of commentary on the other cultural things he's covering. But from that, we're trying to tie down the various understanding of cultural issues to to Torah study, which I enjoy, and I would like to make Torah study popular. That's why I got involved with Luke 4 in the beginning. Like we had thought like Dafyomi or like Pirkei Avos, but at this point, like like there's so many rabbis who do Dafyomi or Pirkei Avos. Like I don't think they need Doooovid and Luke Ford doing another one, but maybe more topics that are interesting to hear from the angle of a convert or a half Jew, or various things that we might bring to the table that rabbis don't. So have a great night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Be blessed. Have a lot of success. Stay safe during COVID-19. And hopefully in the next few weeks, I'm going to produce probably around Labor Day a stream on updated COVID-19, what's going on, what is going to look like moving forward. If I'm right, why schools aren't reopening, what these partial lockdowns and reopening that the experts are saying that likely for the next year, maybe multiple years, we're going to have these levels of lockdowns of that, like when cases go down, we'll have partial reopenings and gatherings up to maybe 100 people, and then there'll be a spike in cases, and the businesses that could open will be limited in the numbers, and it's likely it's going to continue like that. So I'm going to try to gather together some nice PowerPoints, and then maybe some of the stuff we're talking about in business, economic shifting, what sectors, what areas are good to be in moving forward, and various things like that. So hopefully I'll actually do quite a bit of research, and maybe Jennifer will join, and also the current updates in the micro biology. So with that, have a great night, everybody. Signing off.